Hello, I'm Jay from Volunteer Audio. Today, I'm making a video to show you how you can permanently mount a 10-inch subwoofer in your Harley saddlebag. We're going to be using some parts from Cicada, some parts from Hertz. I'm going to go step by step showing you how to do this. It's not as hard as you think, so watch the rest of the video. All right, so first off, I got to say, you win. You guys have been relentless asking me about subwoofers for your Harley. So I'm making a video to show you one of our most commonly sold Hertz systems. It's a 4-speaker system using the SP4.900, and I'm specifically using that system because that amp is actually strong enough to run those 4 speakers and 2 more subwoofers. Now, today's video is not about the future drop-in subwoofers that Hertz has been working on, and we know are coming in the future. This is actually a little more cost-effective, more economical option of permanently mounting that sub in your bag using the same Hertz sub we're going to use in that future drop-in, but it's available now. And there's a couple things that Volunteer Audio has done to put together a system to assist you. And permanent mounted subs are not something that's new. It's something that's been around for a long time. But Cicada has a new system that makes it where I know you can do it at home and you can do it safely. The older method required a lot of adhesive, a lot of panel bond, a lot of sealing and porting. And those things still exist for a purpose. We'll go over some of that later. But you needed a router. And a lot of you didn't have a router table and the proper templates to do that. This is simple. We can do this with basic hand tools. If you can cut in a lid 6x9 cutting kit, you can add this to your bag. And with Volunteer Audio's help, with our plug-and-play harnessing, with our new amp settings, I know you can do this correctly. I don't want to set you up to fail, and I know you can do this. You and I can do this together on your bike. So let's get into the parts we're using and why we're using them. First off, we're using a system from Cicada to do this installation. It comes with a 10-inch ring that's an outside mount ring for your subwoofer. It was designed for their CM series mid-bass, which is a great speaker and it has its place, but in this video we're doing an actual subwoofer, something that plays a lot lower in bass, which is what a lot of you have been hounding me for. We're going to be using a couple parts from them. We're using the 14 HD Ring T. This is a template kit. This is what makes it where I know you can do this. We're going to show you how to install that on the back of your bag, how to secure it, how to trace and cut out the template that it has to be able to mount this ring. Cicada is also going to include some awesome hardware and bolts. Everything we need to do this is included. You don't have to buy any special sealants, no panel bond adhesive, no special caulk guns, no router table bits. We're just going to use a jigsaw blade to cut this out, and then we're going to sand it smooth. We're also going to be adding a 3-inch port system. As part of this template, it's going to walk us through cutting a hole, mounting this 3-inch port. We'll talk about length, diameter, how we're going to put that in as we go through the video. We're going to include in this system, so this is only available from volunteeraudio.com, a full plug-and-play harness that plugs in at your front amp. That's going to put your front and rear speakers on the front channels of the amp. The amp's going to see a 2-ohm load, automatically increasing power. You're not going to lose volume at all. And we're going to be using 2 Hertz CS250 single 2-ohm voice coil subwoofers, 1 in each bag off the rear channels. They're going to be getting about 290 watts of continuous power each, 600 watts peak. That is a lot of power. That's about double what most of the Rockford drop-in subs have. And with the efficiency of this sub, with our port system, with what we're doing, you're going to get bass you can hear and feel. But we're going to make it easy. We're going to share with you, if you've already bought a system from us, or you buy this with a system, the proper amp settings and specs to tie this right into your existing system. No amp gets mounted in the back, and the beautiful part is, by not adding the second amp, we're not forced to go to a lithium battery, so it saves you the money for that very expensive battery. I love lithium batteries, but I hate making you buy one to finish a system. This is that subwoofer made by Hertz. It's an amazing sub for small enclosures. That's what we're working with, and I'm going to show you how to get this in, get it bolted in. You're going to love the end result. We're going to include some stainless hardware, the proper nuts, bolts, and whatnot we need to install this into that bag. This is what the end result looks like when we have a 24 and up bag. We're working today on a 14 to 23 for a customer. His name's Willie. Willie had us do a system a couple years ago. He's wanting to take it to the next level, add that base of the subwoofers, and he loves the idea of doing a permanent mount, because in reality, he wasn't taking any drop-ins in and out of his bag. This will give him some space to store things in. Not as much as he had, but we'll go over that too, show you how much room you're going to lose in that side bag. All right, so let's get to the bike. We're going to remove the bags. I'll start showing you how to install the template. We'll get it cut out, and we'll go through this whole process. All right, so I feel like I need to take just a minute, talk about the different ways we can put subs in before we jump right into this install. We're fixing to remove this side bag, and there's a reason why this system was put together for this purpose. We wanted to use a very efficient subwoofer that was going to be very loud off the power we have at our amplifier. We're also wanting to make it a very simple install for you to be able to do this without paying a crazy amount of labor. And I'll give you an example. We did a bike a while back where we used Milli Pro shallow subs. We did a rear mounted amplifier. It was a CVO. And we ended up sealing those bags by topping them. We ported it. We did all the 3M panel bond adhesive that it took. Between rerouting wiring, because it's a CVO, mounting the rear amp, doing all that, we had close to 30 hours in that job. This is a job that I think can be done in that 4 or 5 hour mark. It's not going to be crazy on you with time. And in the future, taking your bags off is very simple. There's no rear mounted amp. There's no power wire running into that rear bag. And we're going to be doing very minimal cutting of the bag for what we're doing, not as much as you would for some other scenarios. Now, this bike has got an older install. It actually had a Rockford system in it before we put the Hertz system in it. There's been many things done to it. There's some holes and wires and things that probably aren't on your bike. We'll talk about that as we go through it. Are there louder versions of subwoofers and bags? Absolutely. I'm not here to lie to you or make you think that you couldn't spend more money and get more bass, but you're going to spend a lot more money. We're talking the average big sub install is $5 to $6 grand by itself, not counting the rest of your system. This is going to be way, way under that. I want you to build a rider bike system that is lightweight. I want to show you how you can do this with minimal tools, and you can do it on a budget, and you're going to get a lot of bass for what it is. Now, we'll be doing some other videos with subwoofers. You've pushed me to do this, and I'm going to give you plenty of info. We're going to be working on the Hertz drop-in subs when they come out. That's going to be happening early January. We'll go into some great detail on install videos and what to do with that. Same subwoofer, but in an enclosure that goes in and out of the bag. We're also going to be working on some videos with Cicada's CM series mid basses. That Neo mid bass is a pretty amazing mid bass, but it plays a different frequency range than what a subwoofer does. So we'll make some future videos with that. Mid bass is higher frequency. It's going to be more heard going down the road than a subwoofer, but the subwoofer plays those low bass notes you want when you're showing off to your friends or you're at bike night. So there's two different systems for some different scenarios. If you seal your bag and port your bag, you're normally doing that because you've got so much power going to those subs that the lid can no longer seal and work as a good enclosure. The other thing is we have 6x9s in the lids of this bike. The 6x9 will only handle so much power from a sub without the sub starting to break the suspension on your speaker. We're not going to baffle that 6x9 from this 10-inch sub. We know that if we go above 500 watts RMS, that is a must. This install specifically used a 300 watt sub to keep from damaging the 6x9. They're going to work together to give us better bass, and we're still going to get the sound from the rear speakers that we want. When you baffle a 6x9, you lose all bass in the 6x9. In this case, they're going to work together. Yes, we could do it differently. We could put more power on it. We could mount second amps. We could seal it. We could port it. You could spend a lot more money, but this system is going to be amazing. And what you're getting dollar for dollar, I don't think can be beat. So we're going to go through this process, and I'm going to go a little bit more in it as we go through it. But let's get the bike apart. We're going to start this install by getting straight to the part I know you want to see. We're going to get to the subwoofer installation. To do that, we're going to start by removing a rear bag. I'm actually going to remove the lid from the bag. This one actually has a rear light in this hinge. So I'm going to take the bag off to our table. I will unwire that, remove the lid, show you that process, and then we'll get into mounting our template and getting this install underway. So let's start by just taking our two retainers loose on our back bag. They are tight. Now we're going to get new retaining bolts in our kit. So these will be replaced by some that don't have this long swing out on them to clear our new sub. I'm going to take those, set them aside. I'm going to unplug the connector to our rear 6x9. So let's go ahead and unplug that. And in this case, he's got a plug right under the seat here for his lights. I've got to unplug that as well. Now that that's unplugged, I'm going to bring it over here and just set it on our table. All right, so this particular bag has a light that I've already unwired or unclipped all of the connections for that through our bag as part of its wire management. They used a little grommet here that we're going to have to press out to get this light undone. And what we really need to do in this case is pull this wiring back through this hole. In the past, I've seen that's very difficult because these holes aren't always big enough for the plug to pass through. So I'm going to actually have to get this unpinned and pulled through all of this. I'll do that now. We'll come back taking the lid off. There's no need in you don't have this on your bike. So I'll do that, get that undone. We'll come right back to taking the lid off. All right, so I've got my bag over on the table. I've already just disconnected the wiring that went to this side light. Most likely you don't have that in your latch. We've cut and we've actually unplugged our 6x9 harness, and I unplugged or undid the zip ties that were holding it in. We'll be redoing that later as we run our sub wiring in. I'm going to take a T15 Torx. I'm going to remove the 2 screws holding our saddlebag cloth here. All right, so now that we have those undone, we've exposed 2 more just underneath here, so let's remove those. That's going to allow our lid to be free. So now we're going to take our lid, we're just going to set it to the side. That's going to allow us to do what we need to start installing our subwoofer mounting template. All right, so next we're going to be prepping this bag. I just cleaned the outside of my bag because we're going to be putting some masking tape on it. Here's our template from that HD Ring T template kit. The way this works, it has 2 raised portions that fit into these holes after we remove these 2 grommets. So I'm going to actually pull those grommets out of the bag, just like so. Remember, the thicker part was facing outward, the little thinner parts on the inside. We're going to be removing both of those. I'll go ahead and wipe this bag down again, making sure that I get it clean. And then I'm going to put some masking tape over this section, protecting it as we put our template on. All right, so now I'm just going to take, and I'm going to look at where this template would reside on our bag. So I'm going to drop it in its holes where it falls in. Now I know how much area I need to tape on this bag. Now, you're going to see on the bottom of this bag, there are some vents. They were put in to get more bass out of his 6x9s. We are not going to need those any longer, but since they're already there, we're not going to remove them. They're not really going to hurt anything about our install. All they're going to do is kind of confuse you, so I wanted to point that out and let you know that you're not going to have those and you're not going to need those. So I'm just going to tape off the paint. We're doing this to protect the surface of the paint as we do our cutting. Now you can do this a couple ways. These templates are sold separately, and what some people do is they buy the templates, they lay out their tape, they actually trace out what they're going to cut, and they cut it and they reuse that template on job after job after job. I think that it is well worth cutting through the template. When you cut through the template, you're using the template as a protective barrier between your saw and your bag, and I would rather have the extra protection. I think it's worth the cost of the template to have that, and I would advise you to cut through the template as I show you as we go through this video. That doesn't mean there aren't other ways of doing this, and I just have reasons for why I do it. Paint is expensive, and we're going to do things the best we can anytime we're doing anything. So if that means a little more cost, we're okay with the cost as long as the cost merits the protection, and I think it does. Now, as you lay your tape out, we don't want any large creases or places sticking up that are going to keep our template from falling into the right place. It's very important that we cut all this in the right place. Now, your tape can absolutely overlap the other piece of tape. We've got enough room for that. We just don't want to create a mound in your tape that would keep things from setting in the right place. Just want to lay your tape nice and smooth. Again, this is just to protect the bag from the template, and the template's going to protect all of this from our saw. Now, this has 2 other holes from some previous installed accessories that are no longer in this bike, so we'll deal with those when we come to them. You shouldn't have those holes in your bike, so you won't have to worry about that. We may take care of that afterwards, but I know that our template is going to cover those up and do a good job of that. We'll make sure that that hole is still open for our template to lay in. All right, I think that's going to have enough area. Let's check it out. Let's drop us in here. All right, yeah, I've pretty well taped off everything. So at this point, I'm going to get a couple self-tapping screws. They don't come with this, but we're going to take a couple self-tapping screws, and we're going to mount our template into our bag, both at the porthole and at the sub hole. All right, so all I'm doing is using a little coarse threaded screw. This screw is going to have what's called a button head on it. This is what we use anytime we're holding a template down, whether it be to a bag lid or to the back of a bag. So I always want to make sure that I've looked, both of my holes are still lined up. It's perfectly into our shock tower area where we're going to be cutting. And I'm going to line this up in the center of that hole and I'm going to screw it down. All right, so this is good. We're putting screws where we're going to be cutting out later anyway, so don't worry about these holes. They're not going to be there when we're done. Same thing over here. We're going to be putting a couple screws in where our port goes in. Okay, so just like that, we have our template installed. Now I'm going to grab a couple drill bits. We'll go over those sizes, and we're going to be drilling all of the holes out where the screws go through to hold our new sub-ring and our port system in. We're also going to be drilling out some holes to make an area for our saw to drop in to cut the perimeter of this circle out. All right, so we have a couple different size drill bits. It's going to be important that we drill the right holes in the right places. And this template can be used for both an 8-inch ring or a 10-inch ring. Now we're doing a 10-inch subwoofer. If we were doing an 8, we would be doing this on this inside circle, not the outside circle. But we're going to be cutting that outside as we go around here. So we have a couple things. We're going to do 1/4-inch holes in the very outside of this, which I'm going to go ahead and do now. I'm going to go ahead and drill the 1/4-inch. This is what's going to hold our ring on later, and that fits right inside of our template holes. So each one of these gets drilled all the way around. All right, we're going to drill just a few more. One more to go. All right, so that's our perimeter 1/4-inch holes. Now we're going to change over to a 3/16 bit. This 3/16 bit is going to be for the 4 locations for our port system. So I'm going to drill those 4 holes now. All right, so those 4 holes are now drilled. Now, next thing I'm going to do, we're going to be using a one-handed sawzall. It's called a hacksaw that Milwaukee makes. And I use a little precision blade that's they call it a scroll blade. It's what goes in a jigsaw, but it's in a one-handed sawzall. To make room for that bit to drop in for our cutting, I have to drill a couple access holes. So you'll see all the way around, they give you areas here where you can drop in. Now, sometimes I see people drill all of these out. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to drill a couple so I have some starting and end points here with my saw blade. And I may go ahead and just do another one up here so we can go from either angle. If you feel like you need to drill them all out, you're welcome to do it. But again, if you read the directions from Cicada, they're going to tell you, because this template's not cheap, they're about $100 a pair for the templates. They're going to tell you that you can draw and trace this out with a marker. You can take this off. You can cut it. You can use this over and over again. And as you see, at this point, we've not done anything to permanently modify this template to where it couldn't be used, but we're fixing to, because I'm going to be cutting all of these areas out, and I'm going to cut through these ribs, continuing that circle as I go. And once I do that, this one really isn't in a manner that it could be used unless we just trace that outside circle in the future, which you could do. But we're going to do that both at the port hole and at the main hole. I think it's worth buying another set of templates. You be the call on that. Can you cut this without damaging your paint? It's up to you. I like the added security because this bag is very, very expensive if I mess up. All right, so here we are, ready to start cutting. I'm putting my saw blade in. A lot of you ask, what blade are you using? This is made by Milwaukee, part number 5162. This is a metal blade, and this one I think is around 10 teeth per inch. It's a little more aggressive than you would think, but this is plastic. We want to throw those plastic pieces out. We don't want to melt through them. As we melt plastic, we create a GOM. So we want to make sure that this blade is the right blade, and that 5162 is my go-to, whether I'm doing a cutting lid kit or if I'm cutting the back out of one of these bags. Now, if you've bought cheaper aftermarket bags, I'll go ahead and tell you, the plastic they use has a very low temperature to melt, and it becomes much harder to cut a cheap aftermarket bag. These appear to be a factory set of bags, so we'll find out as we're cutting through it. All right, so all I'm going to do is I'm going to drop my saw in one of these holes, and I'm going to follow the outside edge of this template all the way around. When we get done, we can always do a little bit of sanding to smooth it up a little bit more. Now I'm going to drop in from this direction. Sometimes I've got to blow all those chips out of there so I can see where I need to cut. I'm going to spin this bag around a little bit just for angle of cutting. Try to get that clear where I can see again. All right, so as you see, as I'm cutting around, as I get to each one of these, there's an imaginary line there in my head connecting point A to point B, and I'm cutting right through it, following that line. So half of it is cut now. I'm going to continue to cut around the other half of this circle. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and vacuum up some of my debris, and then we'll do some more. All right, so I like to keep my workspace kind of clear as I go. I moved my drill bits away and stuff because as I'm paying attention to you, I don't want to forget where they are and get my bag over top of them. I'm also using a soft tablecloth to protect the outer paint. So as I went, I wanted to vacuum up some debris. I don't want it to work underneath it and end up in any way scratching the paint on this. So we're going to continue cutting around now. All right, so we cut our ring out, so now we have our circle clear. I'm going to do a little bit more vacuuming around here. We're going to come back with our ring. I'm going to show you how to modify it slightly. We've got to drill some holes to make our Hertz speaker fit in that Cicada ring. I'll show you that process. It's going to be easy. Then we'll come back and bolt it in, and we'll sand this and trim it a little bit more to that afterwards. Now, we do have one more hole to cut here. I'll pre-drill it. Let me do a little bit of cleaning. We'll pre-drill. We'll cut that round hole out. Then we'll jump into those next steps. All right, so we've done a little bit more cleanup. I'm crazy. I clean up too much probably. But I'm going to go ahead and start cutting the porthole out. So I went down to a smaller bit. This one's probably going to take a second to go through because it's a little wore out. I think it's a 5/16 bit. Just going to drill a hole to drop our saw in. Luckily, even dull bits want to cut through plastic, so we're good there. I'm going to set this over here again to make sure I don't mess up and slide our bag over into a blade or a drill bit. So I'm going to drop this in. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of cutting one way and then go back the other way. I do that because I want to get the arc set right for this blade, and then I want to come back and I want to clean it up. You could use a hole saw for this, but it's an odd, like 3 5/16. It's something weird, so. All right, so we cut our circle out. Good news about this circle, we'll sand it. We'll make it pretty perfect because I can't leave things not. But it doesn't have to be. There's a flange on both sides. It's completely sandwiched and hidden. As long as your port drops through, you're not going to see this. This one's going to be a little bit more visible once we got our ring mounted, but I'll show you some tricks to get it sanded down smooth and to get it where it looks really nice. Another good thing is our ring we're going to put on actually has a silicone gasket built in, so we're not going to have to put silicone on this. It's just going to sandwich in there and it's going to do well. So let's go to the next step. I'm going to bring the ring over here, our sub over here. We're going to have to drill a few holes, and I'll show you about that process to get our Hertz subwoofer to drop in that Cicada mounting ring. All right, so the next step is we're going to drill some holes in this Cicada ring. Now, this ring was designed for Cicada speakers. Their subwoofer, or I'm sorry, their mid-bass driver, the CM10, that is going to be, they've got a Neo and a non-Neo version of that mid-bass. We are going to be putting in a subwoofer. The Hertz subwoofer has a different pattern. It does not line up with the pre-threaded holes. No problem. We're going to drill some new holes, and I'm going to show you how to do that. First, we're going to take this ring. This ring came in your subwoofer. It can be installed if you want to. There's even an optional grill that goes on this if you want to add that. But for this video, we're not going to end up using this ring on our install, but we are going to use it to lay out where we need to drill some holes. So we're going to take, each one of these is the pre-done hole for the CM driver. I'm going to rotate this around to where I'm between these two holes, and I want to make sure that I have the same distance from my ring to the middle all the way around. Now this is going to be a little difficult for your first couple holes. It's not hard. We're going to mount two holes, or mark two holes in this ring where they go. Next, I'm going to actually drill those holes. I'm going to drop some bolts in to hold it in place while I do the rest. All right, so I just took a marker, marked this one and this one. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and take a 7/32 drill bit. That is what we're using. That's what works with our hardware. I'm going to center up on this hole. Drilling right through that ring. Same thing on this one. All right, so included from Volunteer Audio, we sent you some nuts and bolts. It's all stainless hardware. You're going to end up with a total of 16 screws, 16 nuts, 32 washers, and there's a couple different lengths. We're actually going to get, this speaker has 8 total mounting points. 7 are going to be a 1-inch long screw. One's going to be 3/4 of an inch long. But what I want to do is I'm going to take these, I'm going to drop them through the holes that I just did, and this is just to help me while I mark my other holes. So I'm just going to start this nut and washer on the other side. Actually, let me flip this over so I can see it. It's going to allow you to see it as well. So where it came through, dropping this, tightening that down just enough to hold it. I'm going to do the same thing in the other hole. Now our subwoofer takes much longer hardware if we use this ring. So if you're planning on using this ring, you may have to get hardware that I did not supply. The only time we're going to send longer hardware is if you buy the grill that goes with it as well. But this is readily available at your local hardware store. Not hard to source these machine screws. All right, so now that I've done that, that's going to hold me in place enough to mark my remaining holes. So I'm just going to go in each hole, marking those. I even like using this ring as a little bit of a guide as I drill those holes through this plastic. Especially on this one, it's a little longer. So I'm going to just drill through each one. If you wanted to take it off and use your mark, you could, but I'm just going to drill through. This one's a little tricky. I want to be just straight up and down. Drill through it as well. All right, so at that point, we have drilled all the holes we need for our speaker to mount into here. Very, very simple process, not too hard. And I wanted to show you that because now we can put whatever subwoofer we want by using that method. And Hertz makes it a little simple, sending us this little ring as a guide to drill each one of those holes. Now we can move on over to our bag, We're going to mount this to the bag with the hardware from Cicada, and then we're going to do a little bit more trimming and sanding on that edge. We're going to see how perfect that edge is, and believe me, it's not perfect. I didn't make it perfect on purpose. I want to show you a little bit about how you can clean that up if you're not very skilled with a jigsaw. All right, so let's get our bag over here and we'll do that now. All right, so we're back to our bag. We got our ring that we just drilled those holes in, ready to go in. We already cut this template earlier today, so we can now take that template off. We don't need that anymore for this job. We'll set it over to the side. If you wanted to keep it, you could trace that out. Again, I like using it as something to rest my saw on to make sure that I don't mess up the bag. I'm going to go ahead and untape this side. I'm going to do that so that we don't have our screws going through the tape as we put this ring on. Again, we're going to do a little bit of cleanup here. I've got a couple tools I'll show you because there's a couple ways of doing this. I don't know what you have at your disposal in your garage. I don't want you to have to buy a bunch of new tools to do this, but you know, I'm never upset when I get to buy new tools. So maybe you decide that there's some of these that you want to have in your collection. So finishing this untaping here. Yeah, this particular bag had an old hole here. I may have to put some hot glue. I use automotive hot glue a lot of times to fill in those holes just to make sure that it's good from the back side. It may not be an issue at all, but we'll take care of that as well. Looks like our ring's going to cover that. Should be fine. Cicada's done a really good job. They've added some sound deadening material that comes in our kit. We'll be going over how to install that once we get this ring in. We also have a brace that goes across the top of the bag to brace it, to make it where it doesn't vibrate as much. As much as we can get the vibration out of the material that is our sub enclosure, the more sound we get from our speaker. So that's where that sound deadening material comes in. It's similar to our SoundSkins material. They include that, and then that brace. So these are things that we normally do on higher powered builds, bracing them, trying to get that vibration down, but included in what I think is a very low cost kit for everything that you're receiving. All right, so we got our tape undone. Now we're going to take our ring. You'll notice your ring has a large place at the bottom, smaller at the top, that matches up with the shock tower cutout. I want to take a second and talk about that. If we were going to do a drop-in sub, some of you may be on the fence. Do a permanent mount, do a drop-in sub. You are going to have to cut your bag for either one. The drop-in sub normally is going to cut out this area for a vent to let the sound out. No matter what, the sound from your subwoofer has to escape the bag. So you would be doing the same thing on that. I'm just going to deburr the edge where I cut just a little bit with my fingers, making sure I don't have any burrs hanging over where this seal would go, making sure this is good and clean. And in our bag, or in our box from Cicada, we got a bag of hardware. And inside of here, we've got a bunch of different bolts. And we have some T30 headed bolts. They're a little thicker, and you're going to see that you get enough of those to do both sides. So there's some smaller bolts that were meant to hold the speaker in that we're not using. We got some very small bolts for those braces, and then we got a few longer ones for some other things. But let's pull out this particular bolt as we're going right now. And you should find out that you have enough of these. It would be 16 to do both sides. So I'm just going to separate those 16 out. Now they're going to drop right through those holes that we just did a few minutes ago. So I'm going to take my ring, I'm going to line it up with that larger part facing toward the bottom, smaller part toward the top, and I'm going to start my first bolt in here. Now they don't send you any washers for this. If you want to, you could add some washers. It just depends on your paint, making sure that these do not damage the paint. I don't think they're going to on this one. It has factory paint. A lot of times, like I say, your cheaper bags are going to have paint that's easy to damage from the head of something like this turning. So I'm just going to get a couple of these started. I'm not going to tighten any of them down all the way till they're all in place. Little trick, if your bolt's not starting right, just go in the reverse direction till you feel it fall in and start correctly. Very nice design. This is a very well built system, and that ring is very stiff. And because it's so stiff, it's adding rigidity back to the bag. You would think I'm cutting out so much of my strength, but you're really not. Make sure, how close are we on being straight down? It's a little tight there, but we should be able to get it to start straight. A little bit of pressure the other direction. Looks like we're straight. May have to put a thread chaser or something in there in a minute. The other one's starting very, very easy. I'm going to go to a different bolt, see if I get better success. Lined up pretty straight, but I'm going to drill it out just a little bit more. All right, let's try this another bolt in there, see if we can get on it a little bit better. Let's take your time. If you run into something that doesn't seem right, stop. See what it takes to correct it. This one seems like the threads are just a little tight compared to the other ones, but it's still going and it's not making any noises. So we're going to tighten her on down. She's going now. Now all of these bolts come pre-Loctited. We definitely don't want them to vibrate loose. And this one is tightened all the way up now. So that was our last bolt. Let's tighten the other ones down now. All the way around. Now you could do this with power tools. I don't suggest them. When you're doing something where you're bringing a bolt onto paint, the faster you do that, the more likely you create a damaged area in that paint. So I'm just going to use my hand, tightening these down by hand until they are tight, but not enough that we cause an issue with that paint. All right, so now that ring is mounted, and it's mounted really, really solid. That gasket's done as you can see here, this gasket's actually covered our hole we lucked up there. I'll end up filling that in later. But now I've got another guided edge that I can sand to, or I can Dremel to, if I want to make it more perfect. Now you could drop the sub right in. It's going to fit. It's going to work. Just depends on how OCD you are about your bike. I'm going to take and clean this up a little bit more with a sander. I'll show you a couple of different options. All right, so there are many options on different kinds of sanders or different ways we could do this. We could use an orbital sander and we could try to get up in here, but this is a pretty tight area. I have this little belt sander that works well to just hit these edges. And you could come across through here and you could do it with a belt sander and you could get it pretty close. My favorite method probably on one of these is similar to a router, but it's not. I'm going to use something called, I think the brand name would be a RotoZip. Milwaukee has their version of it, and they have a blade that the tip of it doesn't cut, just the upper part does. And I can use this as a template to just kind of clean that up a little bit more. So I'm going to grab that tool and show that to you. So this is that other tool that I was talking about. They call it a rotary tool, but this particular blade, the tip of it does not cut. So if you go around this bag, you can actually press against that, and the middle portion cuts and trims it up to the same height. So this is my preferred way. This way is a little more dangerous. If you don't know what you're doing, you could let it get away from you and you could cut some of the bag that you didn't mean to cut. So I'm going to do a little bit of cutting. I'm going to get all these bolts and screws picked up here, and I'm going to use that rotary tool and I'm going to clean that edge up before we move on. So as you can see, just following that, I'm able to actually straighten up this cut a little bit more than I could with that jigsaw blade alone. It's going to take me a little bit of time. I'm going to do a little bit more of this. I'll do some vacuuming, clean it up. We'll come back to you in a minute. We'll be putting this port in next. All right, so there are 3 parts from Cicada that we're using as part of this install. The third part we hadn't showed you yet is the HD port 3. So they make this for 14 and older. It's just called an HD port 3, and 24 and newer, which is the 24 HD port 3. We also used as part of this the 14 HD Ring T. That was our template. And over here is our other kit. The 14 HD Ring 10 is our 10-inch templates and hardware. We'll continue going through showing you more that comes in that kit. Some things, again, we're not going to use. Some things we are. In this case, we probably won't be using their grill. It doesn't fit our sub. but we are going to be using this full port system. I really like the idea of this. They're using what's called an aero port. It's actually rounded on the edges so that as the velocity of the air moves in and out, we don't get crazy sounds from it. This has to drop through that hole. And on the back side, there's going to be this ring. This ring is actually pre-threaded for our screws that are going to go through here. So our next step is just going to be to simply put this in place. And then we'll talk about trimming and installing the port later. It's already got a rubber silicone gasket on this side. So we're going to face it with Cicada pointed up, line it up to our 4 holes. And let's grab our hardware. And the hardware is in this bag to put that together. So inside of here, you're going to get a total of 8 of these screws. Again, you're only going to need 4 per side, so I'm only going to get 4 of them out of here. Let's find our Torx driver for this. Appears to be it is a T25 Torx. So we've got our ring. Again, like I told you earlier, it doesn't have to have a perfect hole. You're never going to see it again. So I'm going to spin this around till my first threaded hole lines up. Get this lined up in my ring. A little tricky, I'm having to see with my fingers. As this goes through, it's not actually made it through the bag yet. There we are. Starting into that ring. Again, I never tighten anything up all the way until I get the other one started. So we're going to bring it down, but we're not going to tighten it. We'll go to our next screw here. Just trying to get it lined up perfectly. There we go. Got it started and through. It's got 2 more to go. Once we get all of these started, we'll tighten them on down. Takes a while to get through the outer port, through the bag, and to the ring, but we're there now. So I'll keep tightening these down. All 4 are started. So now I don't want to go crazy tight with any one till I feel the ring is getting pulled in closer. So after you get it, you'll see these look like they're done, but they're pulling that ring in now. So as I continue to turn them, they're pulling the ring on the back side closer and closer to the bag. Down more and more and more. You'll know when it gets tight because it won't turn anymore. It's going to bottom out. We're there now on a few of them. Keep going with this one. Looks good. So we've got that tight. We're going to move on to mounting the sub next. I'll talk about cutting that port down, and we'll move on as we continue through our installation process. All right, so on to the next part of this. So we have this big sub already mounted now. We've got our port mounted in where it's going to go, and we need to put in the holes it's going to take to mount this brace. So this brace is going to go from the top of our sub to the other side of our bag, and we are going to have to pre-drill a few holes for that. So in your template setup, you're going to get this from Cicada. They're going to be marked right and left. They have the 4 holes that are going to drop into where your bag hinge was. You're going to push that in place, and then you're going to simply take and drill 2 holes, 1 on each end. This is a 5/32 drill bit, so we're going to drill through there on each side. This is going to give us what we need to put that brace in place. All right, just that simple. We've marked and cut those holes. I'll show you a little bit more here in a little while on how to put that in, but first we're going to put our sub in before we move into that part of it. All right, so our next step, we're going to go ahead and mount the subwoofer in the ring that we earlier installed. Now I want you to take your sub and I want you to take the ring. There's a ring that came with it. We're going to use that. And I actually decided that it looks better with it. We're going to go ahead and give you the hardware to do that. Point these terminals toward the front of the bag. The reason we want to do that, we're going to be coming in just like we would on a 6x9 in this front corner with our wiring. It's going to give us a short run in the bag. It's going to make things look better on the inside of the bag and less likely to get in the way if you throw some gear in place. So we're going to take this particular sub and drop it in. We're going to line up the holes with those previous ones that we drilled. And then we're going to drop our ring in to line up as well. Now, in the hardware you're going to get from us, you're going to get some of these are going to be 1.25 inches, and you're going to have one that's only 1 inch, and that's because one of these locations is thinner on the inside. So, and that's going to be up here in this top location. So I want you to take all of the 1 inch ones and just start dropping it in the holes, lining it up all the way around. We're not going to put a washer on this outside location. We don't need it with this ring in place. So lining each one of these up, dropping them in. We're just going to wiggle this around till it lines up. Pretty close there. There we go. One more long one here. Take that, the 1 inch version is going to go in this top corner. And then we're going to have 1 1/4 inches drops in here as well. So each one of these on the back side, and I know you can't see it from this angle. It's hard. If this was a flat bottom bag, we could stand it up, and I'll show you here in a minute. But each one of these, you're going to take your number 10 washer and your lock nut. This nut's going to have a plastic inside of it. They call it a stop nut, so it won't back out on us. We're going to start those on the underside. Now we're going to use hand tools because anytime you're using a stop nut and you hit it with a drill, you tend to overheat that plastic and it locks up and it gives you problems. We don't want that. So I'm just going to start each one of these by hand, putting my washer, putting on the nut. This hardware that we send you is a 1024. I'll just start in each one of these. And it's all stainless. We don't want it to ever rust. So we're going to send you all stainless hardware. It helps too because the stainless isn't magnetic. So it doesn't try to grab the back of that subwoofer as you're trying to get these started. Sometimes these inside ones are a little easier if you put a screwdriver on it to help you turn it a little as you try to start it. Got that one started. Got one more to go. All right, you're going to need a 3/8 wrench. You're going to hold that on the back side of each one of these at the nut, and then we're going to tighten it on down. Now our Hertz speaker already came with a foam gasket installed on the back of it. It comes that way from Hertz. So we did not have to add an additional gasket. That'll seal us up to the ring that we used from Cicada. So they're going to include a rubber ring, but their rubber gasket ring is designed to inset into their speaker, so we're not going to use that. And we're not going to use their grill. So there's a couple components you're going to find in the kit that aren't used. This speaker, I really like it. The Chinto subwoofer is a weather-resistant sub. It's made of polypropylene cone and a butyl rubber surround. There's nothing about it that water's going to affect. And by all this being sealed, water's not going to get into the bag as well. And when we put our port in, that port's going to face upward, making it where water can't run into the bag through the port either. So it ends up being a very weather-tight installation. Now I've got a 3/8 ratcheting wrench here. It's going to help me on a few of these just to make it a little easier. And the ones where you can't ratchet, you just use your screwdriver on the other side. All right, so that's all of our screws in, all of them tight. Our sub is mounted. It looks really good from the front. Also looks really good from the back. As you'll see, each one of these lock nuts are tightened up to where they're not going to come loose. Our speaker terminals are facing more toward the front. And now we're going to move on to installing our, well, we've got a few more things. We're going to put our little gaskets in here. We have new hardware. We're also going to be putting our lid back on. And as part of that, putting the lid back on, we're going to be installing a brace across here that's going to make our bag much stiffer, which is going to give us more base. Now we're going to have to do just a little bit of modification to this. I'll show you that process as well. I'm going to make it very, very simple on you to do this install, covering all the different parts. All right, so we had a bag of hardware included in that ring kit. It's going to come with some of these new rubber bag bushings. Now they're going to go in, thick side is going to face outward, and the little thin side is going to go inside. And once we're done, there's a little sleeve that's going to go through it. And then we have new bolts and washers that are now going to hold our bag in after the fact. This is going to allow us to use an Allen head tool to tighten this up. We're not going to have that swing radius with this new 10, but they give you what you need to make this very simple. So to put these in, we're going to need a little straight screwdriver, and we're going to just work it in around this hole. Let me grab one of those. So we're just going to take the thin side of this. We're going to try to get it started into this hole like so. As we push it down, work into the next section, pushing it in. These are very stiff, but it should not be hard for you to work around and get in there. We took these out earlier, the factory ones, to get our template to line up. As we get that in, we're just going to lift it up. We'll look at it from the back side here. You'll see now that it's just went around and is looking good. So next we'll take this insert, slide it in from this side all the way in. That's going to give us a little bit more spacing as well. Gives us a little bit more excursion on our speaker. Keeps everything away from the shock tower. I'm going to do that again here on our back hole. Got that one in. Now we're going to slide this in on it as well. All right, so let's move on to our bag lid. I really think we need to get our lid mounted before we go putting our brace in. And we've got some new gaskets for that as well to make it seal better too. So let me get it over here. We'll change that gasket out. I'll show you that process. All right, so something else that we need to keep in mind. If we're going to be using our bag as a speaker enclosure, we really need the lid to seal well. So Cicada has included some new gaskets to go on that lid. They're a lot heavier duty lid, and they want us to put them on a different way than the factory one was. So I want to go over that with you. So come on in here, check this out. We're just going to take our original gasket and we're going to start peeling it loose. Now there may be some glue, some two-way tape on the back, and we're going to have to clean that off as we before we put our new one on. But we're going to start peeling it, seeing how much of that there is to clean and how much of it just comes loose. So peeling it off all the way around. We're going to take and go the other way with the other part of it here. Now it's a cold day here in Tennessee, and the colder it is, the less likelihood that this glue releases easily. So it means we're going to have a little bit more cleanup just due to the climate and the time of year. As we pull this off, you can see some areas came off clean without any glue residue. And one good part is we're not sticking back into that channel in the same way. So a lot of this residue is not going to be a problem because Cicada wants us to change it. We're not going to be going straight down onto the bottom. We're going to actually be gluing to this outside edge as we go back together. So let me get some isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to clean that edge and we'll start laying this gasket in, see how it fits. And we know that this is going to give us a much better seal, which is going to amount to much better sound as we get done with this project. All right, so I'm just going to take some rubbing alcohol, also known as isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just going to clean inside this channel. And this is going to do a couple things, but the main thing is it's going to get the dirt out. It's going to allow us to get a good adhesion promotion of that new gasket. We don't want it coming loose later. That's just going to defeat the whole purpose of trying to get it to seal better. You can see there's quite a bit of dirt in there that we're actually cleaning out. And if you read their directions, this new gasket is shaped a little differently, and that's on purpose. They want you to install it a little differently. We're going to stick it, and it's going to actually stick to the outside edge, filling this groove in and making for a much better, thicker gasket surface area. So just like the factory gasket did, though, we're going to start in the middle of our hinge area here, so about halfway. And we're going to peel this, and we're going to work our way around, making sure that we stick it to that outside wall as we go. Making sure we're all the way in the bottom, and we're able to stick it outward. Factory gasket had a hard time making these turns. I really like the idea of standing it on end and sticking it to the outside. That's going to make this fit much, much better as we go together. Double checking our length here. It's going to make it into there. Not quite all the way. Let's keep peeling and sticking. So a lot of times from the factory, there's a little bit of a gap left in that hinge area. I'm going to come really, really close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually stretch this a little bit. It will stretch some. Re-sticking this front edge. Get us a little bit more length to go all the way in here on the inside. Just like that. It is long enough to make it all the way. So we're going to apply some pressure here as we go around through here, evening out that stretch. We'll make sure it's stuck good, and then we'll shut the lid and let it sit for a while, and we should be really good about that adhesion. All right, so that was pretty easy. So let's move on to reinstalling our lid on our bag. To do this, I'm actually going to go back to the bike. I'm just going to set the bag on just temporarily so that we can see these things maybe a little better as we go back together with it. All right, so we're just going to set our sub bag now back on the bike temporarily. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start some of this hardware back in. We're going to hold it in place as we work on getting our bracing and our lid and our port in place. We'll take it back off and do some wiring here in just a little while. As you can see, looks pretty good. And all in all, we actually have a little bit of usable room still left in this bag. I'm just holding that on for now. All right, so let's get our actual lid. We'll get it bolted back on and we'll secure this brace in place here. All right, anytime we're going to do this, we're going to do this in a couple steps. First off, there are 4 screws that hold this hinge on, but 2 of them normally go through this cloth that keeps your lid from opening too far. So you're supposed to put 2 in and 2 more through that, but if you just put the 2 in and tighten them, you're going to have a hard time lining up the last 2. So I want to put all 4 in, get the middle ones tightened up, and then we'll take the outer 2 back out to allow us to put that cloth back on. We've also got a brace to put on in the middle of all this. So starting that one good. That one as well. Outside one lined up, and then we're going to do the other outside. There we go, it lined up. So now I can tighten those 2 middle ones. All right, so now we'll take the outside ones back out. It's going to allow us to take that cloth. Now, if you're using Cicada lid kit, it's going to come with a new cloth that you would put on in its place. But in this case, we're just going back with the stock one. No need to change it. All right, so now we've got our lid back on. Let's move on to our brace. So this is the brace that we're going to be installing. It's actually going to go across right here. And you'll notice when you go to put this on, this bag is actually flexed out a lot in the middle, and this is going to strengthen that. It's going to make it where it doesn't. We're also going to see here that our nut is actually hitting the corner of this. So I'm going to take this over to my grinder, and I'm just going to notch it just a little bit, make sure I have room before we start going together and trying to make this work. All right, so I've got my brace. I've ground that corner just enough that everything's going to line up. But just for you to be able to see better, I'm going to go ahead and clean the inside of this bag with alcohol. And I'm going to show you the next step, which is we're going to be putting inside of here a sound dampening material to make this bag twofold. We're going to cut vibration down with sound dampening, and we're also going to stiffen up the bag with a new brace. Well, let's do that sound dampening next. All right, so in your kit, in the Cicada ring kit for that 10-inch ring, you're going to get a couple pieces of sound deadening material. They're actually going to be marked right, so this one is rear right, as well as the outside right. We're not going to put any on the front edge. We're not going to put any where the actual speaker goes. But this is really easy. I've already wiped off the inside of my bag with isopropyl alcohol. This is just a peel and stick. So we are going to peel the backing off. This is similar to our Sound Skins material, but this is only 1 layer, whereas our Sound Skins is 2 layers. So this is nice because it's included. It's part of the kit. You didn't have to pay extra to buy this secondary to put in, and it's going to give you a really good sound. It's going to give you better base, which is what we're doing this for. So we're just going to line that up, stick it in here, work it toward the front, and you just simply just rub this into that outside wall. Just that easy. You don't have to cover every square inch for sound deadening to work. It changes that resonant frequency of the plastic, allows us to have less vibration, which amounts to more bass coming out for us to hear. So let's open up the second one here for the rear right. This is that rear piece. You'll notice it is cut where it's a little wider at the top than it is at the bottom, like the bag is. We'll peel and stick this one as well. So again, just dropping this in, bringing the wide part up here toward the top. Stick it on that back wall and just press it in with your hand. Make sure it adheres to that plastic. All right, so that's pretty easy, but I thought you'd have a better view without the brace. So now I'm going to get the hardware. We'll go and put the brace on now. All right, so we've got our hardware for our brace. So inside the large amount of hardware, you're going to have two smaller torque screws. They're going to go in this portion. You've got two longer ones. The longer ones are longer by purpose, just to make sure that they can fit through this plastic of the bag, come out the other side. We're going to put those in. Be using our ratchet here to tighten them up here in a second. All right, so there is a right and left for this brace. And this is the one just a few minutes ago I modified to make sure it cleared our bolt up here. But if you put it in and it doesn't look like it's pointed in the right direction, you have the wrong side. So just grab the other one, but let's start this first. I'm just going to start each one. We're not going to actually tighten it quite yet. Making sure we're started in there. It's a very well thought out, well planned out kit. Again, all of this, you watched us put the little template in to drill these holes, and they just lined up perfectly. It's a very, very good job. So now we're just going to push this bag in a little bit so these line up. This hardware's already got Loctite on it, which is nice. Now our bag is very, very stiff. You know, they're not like that from the factory. They're very flimsy, and when you open the bag, it just leans outward. So I'm going to drop my little lighting wire in here, pushing all my gaskets back out where they go. I'm going to go ahead and close my bag, double checking that everything clears, everything closes. Absolutely, everything clears. Those new gaskets are definitely tighter. That's what we want. We want a really good seal. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and measure out. I'm going to show you how to get the port length correctly. We're going to install our port, and then we'll take the bag back off and we'll install the wiring that's going to run our subwoofer and show you that quick disconnect for this side. At that point, I'll take a break from you. I'll get the other side done, and then we'll come back to the bike. We'll tear it apart, and we'll run the wiring from the amp back to power these new subwoofers. All right, so here we are. We're going to talk about our port. So this is a 3-inch port. The front of the port is aerodynamically shaped to allow the air to go in and out without having a port whistle. But this is going to be something that we can cut and modify to length based on our enclosure and what frequency we want it tuned at. Now the FS on these subs is about 30 Hertz, meaning they will play 30 Hertz very, very well. But we put this box, which is a 1.25 cubic foot bag. It's an extended bag. When we take into account the room in the lid, we have about 1.2, 1.25 cubic feet. We put that in a box building program, loaded in all the Thiele small parameters from the subwoofer, taking out the room that the sub itself is taking, and we've done some generations, seen what a 3-inch port would do at each frequency, and I've actually got a picture of that. I'll share that. It'll be up on the post where we go to put this on our website. But what we've determined is that the correct length of this port should be 8 inches. It's 10 inches factory, and you'll notice they actually have like a ruler on the end as to how much you would cut it as you start cutting it off. So we're going to remove 2 inches off the end of this port, leaving us an 8-inch port. And anytime you have a rounded or a 90-degree port, you're going to measure the center to get your total distance. But 10 inches overall, and we're going to cut 2 inches off. That's going to be a good place because we're not cutting any of the screw holes or the retainers here that are actually making this a solid object. We don't want to do anything to degrade the integrity of that. So 2 inches off will be 8 inches. 8 inches tunes our box at about, or our bag, at about 40 hertz. I like that frequency range because that's going to give us really low bass for the rap and the hip hop, but it also brings us the upper bass in very well for rock and country. So this is going to be a box that's meant to play all kinds of music. It's also bringing us up in efficiency. So 40 hertz is far more efficient than 30 hertz. Our sub doesn't have to move as much to make that volume, and we're working on efficiency in this design. So I'm just going to take a piece of masking tape and I'm going to lay it out at that 2-inch part. I do this just to keep myself in line because I'm going to cut this with a saw, and if I ever just try to cut something around like this and hope that I'll work out in the right place on the other side, it's generally a mess. So I want to make sure that it matches up and goes right back where it's supposed to. So I took a piece of tape at the 2-inch mark, went all the way around it, and now I've got a line to follow as I cut this. So I'm going to get my saw, I'm going to cut through this, and we'll go and put it on the bike here just shortly. So I'm going to use that same saw that we used earlier, but I'm going to go to a larger blade. This being a 3-inch port, I need a little longer throw on this as I cut through it. All right, so now that we've got it cut, I'm going to deburr the edges. You can do some of that by hand, but I'm just going to grab a little DA sander and drop the end on this and just smooth this end out. All right, so at that point, I've got a really nice cut, very smooth, and we've done that right at that 2-inch mark. So that gives us an 8-inch port left. Now at this point, you're going to need either some clear or black silicone, because the way this gets installed, we're just going to open the bag, we're going to put a bead of silicone in here, we're going to slide it on, we're going to let it dry. So if you don't have that, now's a good time to pick up a tube of silicone. RTV silicone will work as well. So 100% clear or that black RTV. All right, so we got our port trimmed down. I just stuck it in here. Fits without problem. It's a good tight fit. And what we're going to do is we're going to position it, kind of judge and make sure it's what we want. I think that's going to be what we want. I'm going to move it forward just a little bit like that. And then I'm going to take it back off. I'll take some black RTV silicone that we've got here, and we're just going to put a bead of that on the inside of this tube all the way around. This is going to get us secured on there, get us where we are airtight. It's also going to hold it in place. Once we let this dry, we're going to let it dry a few hours. This is going to be very strong. We're not going to have to worry about it falling off. So I'm going to bring it in toward the back, point it back here and push it in. But I'm also just going to rotate it some to the front. That's just going to spread that out evenly. And we're just going to let it sit there, and we're going to let it dry. So at this point, I'm just going to close my bag back, let all these gaskets get used to their new thickness and their new home. That's going to help our bag get to where it opens and closes a little easier later as well. So I'm going to let that sit here and dry while I move on to the other bag. So let me get it done. I'll go ahead and get it cut, modified. You've already seen the process. I'm going to do it off camera. Then we're going to get back together and we'll wire inside the bag and we'll wire throughout the bike. And soon we're going to get to hear it and let you see just how much extra bass we've added by adding these 10-inch subs to your Harley. All right, so our port has dried, our sub is installed. We're down to the final stretches of this install, and we are ready to do a little wiring for our sub. So I want to show you the back of this bag, and this hole was already there from a previous install of some light wiring. We're going to use that hole, we're going to make it a little bigger, we're going to go to a 5/8 hole, and we're going to drop a grommet like this in with a harness that runs down to our sub. I'm going to go ahead and run the light wiring through that hole as well. You may not have that, so don't worry about that, but this is the area where we want to put our second hole. You probably already have one from your 6x9s if you have those. If not, you can put it where that 6x9 grommet location is there. But the idea is we're going to go between the point of the latch. You see the 4 screws that are holding this metal that allows your lid to latch closed, and we now have this new heavier duty grommeted area where we bolt our bag in. We're going to be in this area to make sure we have room to get that wiring into the bike. Now I'm going to start with a unibit. This unibit is a step bit. A lot of these come all the way down to a point, but since I already have a hole, this one is specifically designed to take an existing hole and make it bigger. And I'm going to go up to a 5/8 hole. That's going to be the third step on my step bit here. All right, so I'm going to check and see how many steps I'm in. Looks like I went right down to the 5/8. So normally I'll go ahead and open my bag up, and I'll take my bit from the inside and just clean that hole from the inside as well. So let me make sure that goes all the way down in my drill. Gives me enough room to do that. Make sure I clear this wiring. All I'm doing is just deburring the back side just a little bit. All right. So at this point, you'd want to just vacuum up any more debris that you may have. Now, this particular wiring, we're going to take this terminal end and we're going to cut this shorter, and I'll show you that. We're going to stick it through this hole into our bag. We're going to take our grommet. Now, in this case, I've got a little bit of extra light wiring. We're going to go ahead and feed it through the hole here. You won't have to do this step, likely. But if you've got some other lights you've already ran, like these are custom dynamics, if you've got those, then you may want to do this step as well. Just clean things up and go through the same hole. We're going to drop it into this side of this grommet. Now, as we push this in, I'm going to grab a little screwdriver here. As we take our grommet, we're going to try to get this portion through the hole and flare it up on the other side. So we're going to start it in the hole first. And then we're going to work our way around, pushing that down into the bag. As that goes into the bag, it's going to allow us to work further around this circle. It's going to be a little tighter because I've got that extra wire. We're just going to continue to push around till we drop in, like so. And this rubber is going to conform to both of those wires now, and it's going to give us an area there that's not going to want to let any water in, but it's going to protect that wiring as it passes through. If you reach on the other side, let me show you. If you're looking on the other side and this rubber hasn't came all the way through, bring your screwdriver back down below, push through till you see it comes all the way through, like that. You're just going to work your way around anywhere that didn't go all the way, pushing out on that rubber, making sure that it flares out on the other side. Back to this side, I got a little bit more to do on the bottom of it. As each bit of this drops in, it just fits better and better. All right, so that's all we had to do to pass it through into the bag. At this point, I want to do a few other steps. Let's go to the bike. We're going to take the fairing off. We're going to pull the gas tank. We're going to route our wire into the back into our wire management. We'll put the bag on the bike, bolt it in, and then I'll show you how to finish up the wiring inside of the bag. We're going to do this in steps that are logical and make sense as we go. So now let's go to the bike and let's fully run that wiring all the way back to the bag. All right, so I've took both of our bags back off. They're sitting here, done, ready to go. Now we're back to the bike. We're going to start by taking our seat off. We'll move up front, get the fairing off, and take the gas tank off as well. We've got to route some wiring from our amplifier all the way back here to the subs. Now, as part of this too, we'll get to it, you're going to do some amp setting changes. And if you bought from Volunteer Audio, it's going to be simple because we already have those settings, and we'll send you a picture of them to show you what to change when you add the subs on. And this easy plug-and-play harness is going to make it simple as well. So I just removed that retainer from the back of my seat, set my seat over to the side. I'll grab some tools. Let's go to the front, and let's start taking the fairing off. Now, keep in mind, we always want you to protect that front fender in case you drop a tool or drop something. I've already got a fender protector on the front. If you don't have one, just throw a towel, a sweatshirt, throw something over there that's going to have some cushion in case you drop something. See if I can find the right tool here. This has some custom dynamics lights on the front. I just want to make sure I get the right Allen head. Factory would just be a Phillips head. All right, so to remove our fairing, I'm also going to grab a box to put our bolts in. I like to keep an organizer, make sure that all of our bolts get kept up with and get put back on. So normally there'll be 2 Phillips screws on each side up here with some sort of trim. In this case, they have lights that have been installed. So we're going to take these, and this is a 1/8 Allen head loose on each side. The windshield should be slotted, so once we get this loose, we'll lift the windshield off. We're just going to remove this outer fairing. Our amp is currently mounted under our radio behind the headlight. If you're doing a fresh install and you're putting that amp in, this is going to be awesome because we already cover all of these steps before you ever got to the subwoofer video. So definitely get your radio, your amp, your speakers in, and then route this wiring back. So once that's loose, you'll see there's some slots in the windshield. Let us take the windshield loose. I'm going to set it over here to the side as well. So I'll just continue taking those bolts all the way out now. So I'm going to temporarily let these lights just kind of hang here toward that inner fairing until we get to where we can unplug them. So at this point, this being a road glide, we're just going to press down on this painted portion of the fairing, getting our hand under this black plastic and lifting up. By doing so, it's going to unsnap these two clips and allow us to set this over to the side. Always look and make sure that this portion has not separated from that outer portion. If it has, put it back in place where it should go. We also at this point want to unplug our side marker lights. There's going to be a connector on each side that's zip tied to your outer fairing. Just unplug there. And let's take our panel removal tool now and let's pop our front grille out. So we're just going to go in behind the grille, unsnapping each one of the clips up here at the top or at the inside. Now we're taking a 3/16 Allen, and each of your side markers is going to have a retaining bolt going through the fairing. Don't worry, it doesn't actually hold the light on. It's connected to the fairing, so it's not going to fall. Let's take that off on both sides. Again, if you put your amp in, your speakers in, this is going to be second nature. You've already done this before, and this is really simple. Very, very basic hand tools. Here we're going to move on to a T25 Torx. We're going to remove the bottom Torx screw on the inner fairing on both sides. Do that on both sides here. Leave the upper one in. It's holding this side trim on, and it is not needed to be removed. So, all right, so at this point, the only thing holding our fairing on is these two Torx screws beside each one of those speaker grills. So we're going to go ahead and remove the first one. We'll go ahead and remove the second one. Now I'm going to use my body and just kind of lean on this fairing, keeping it in place while I remove this last screw. All right, so now I can just grab my fairing, kind of wiggle it just a little bit. It's got some custom dynamic side markers we're coming around here. We can set our fairing over to the side. All right, so while we're in the front, we're going to go ahead and pull our headlight. Now, this particular bike, it's got a couple accessories I've got to think about. It's got some lights on the side of the headlight that plug in up here at the top. So I'm going to follow that plug up to the top. I'm going to unplug it. There's a good chance this is not on your bike, and you won't have to do this step. But we get to work on the bikes that our customers bring us, and sometimes we have a few extra things thrown in the mix. So we're just going to follow this up and unplug it, doing that ahead of time. Make sure that we don't get our headlight unbolted, and then we're trying to hold it here and get it unplugged. So you always want to look for those extra things. Now on our headlight, we got 4 bolts. Again, we're using that 3/16 Allen head. So we're going to take the 2 at the bottom out first. And we're doing this for wire routing. So this is just to get access where we're going to be running our wiring here, to get that sub wiring from our amp to the back. Now there's 2 more just at the top of the headlight. All right, so I'm just going to slide my headlight forward, and I'm going to unplug the headlight. All right, so while we have that 3/16 Allen tool, we're going to go ahead and just unbolt the radio. I don't want you to unplug it. We're just unbolting it to get to the end of the amp. I want to show you how to get to it on a road glide so you can easily make the changes to the amp that are going to be necessary. Now, this install is going to have a factory radio. The settings on the amp are going to vary dependent on the radio you're using. So if it's a factory radio and it's been flashed, it'll have different settings than if you had a SoundStream Reserve radio like the 14 Plus or the 14 SI. Or if you have the new WHD 14 Plus or the V2, those are also going to have different settings. So once you've made your purchase at Volunteer Audio, just reach out through tech support, let us know what radio you have, that you need the settings on your amplifier, and they'll send you a picture over to help you. You'll have that when you get to that point. So I'm going to show you how to get to the amp. I'm not going to cover the settings because there's so many variations. We want you to refer to that paper or that picture or whatever document they send you at that time. So now that I have my radio loose, I can actually lift this radio up while it's plugged in. And if you'll look right through this hole on this side, you're going to see the end of the amplifier, and you can now unbolt the end of the amp and make those amp changes that you need to make. All right, so now we're going to move on to our gas tank. We've got to get it off so we can route this wiring. So it's going to be pretty simple. Let's go look under the seat first. This particular bike's got a bunch of extra lighting, and sometimes we run into that. But what we're going to do is we're going to be unplugging the connector that comes from the gas tank down to under the seat. There's also a vent line here that we're going to be unplugging as well. There's also 2 bolts here. I want you to go ahead and take your ratchet. I've got a 13 millimeter on a battery powered ratchet. I'm going to remove those. Now we're going to have 2 more at the front of the gas tank. So on either side of the gas tank, if you look down in here, you'll see there's a place with a little rubber cap, and you're going to grab that cap, pull it off, and then you're going to have access to get to the bolt that you need to remove there as well. There's going to be 1 on each side. So go ahead and take those out. Again, just reaching in here, removing that cover. Just having the side lower fairings, it takes a little bit more of our view away. Same style bolt that we just saw at the back of the gas tank and on the other side. So 4 bolts in total. Now, the only thing we have left now, we have to disconnect our fuel line. And I will go ahead and tell you, this bike has underglow neon lights. I've already unplugged those from each end of the gas tank. So if you have lights on your tank, make sure you've unplugged those before you proceed. You don't want to lift it up and mess those lights up. But the last step here is, this is our fuel line. We're going to disconnect it. It's very simple. Just push up on this silver sleeve, wiggle and come down with the gas line. As soon as it's undone, a few drips may fall, but it cuts the fuel off. So now we're disconnected on fuel. Just going to grab our gas tank, pick it up. And again, it'll be a lot lighter if you have less fuel. So normally they get brought to us with a full tank. But let's grab it and set it over to the side. All right, so I want you to go ahead and open up what we call the backbone of the bike. Now this bike, again, has a previous install. We've already had this open in the past. Normally there's going to be some tape, maybe a zip tie or 2 across this. You're going to cut that and lift it up and over to give access to remove this cover. So all you're going to do is take these little clips, pull out on the plastic so that it unclips. Normally after you get a couple of those undone, you can literally just wiggle up toward the front, release your brake lines here. That's just some ABS brake lines. And keep wiggling and remove this cover, exposing where all the factory wiring is ran. That's where we want to run our wiring as well. All right, so you have been hounding me. A lot of you guys have been calling in wanting a plug-and-play, easier DIY sub-install video and kit, and I'll put this together. I'm eventually going to have this harness made in a factory. When it's made in a factory, we're likely going to have different connectors on it that aren't like what go to our rear speakers. But until then, I want you to take and mark your new harness. It'd be simple as taking a marker, writing on it that it's for your sub. And by doing so, you don't get confused if you ever take it apart and connect this to your 6x9s in your lids. Now, since we are using the same amp, it's not like we're going to blow them. They're just not going to sound right because we're going to have these crossovered to play low frequencies that a sub does, not mids and highs like a 6x9. But this is the end that's going to run to the back. That's going to plug into our subwoofers. This harness is really, really cool. We've built this where all you do is come up here into the fairing. You find the output connector from your amplifier, unplug it. When you unplug this and plug this new connector in between, you may have to do a little bit of wire management in here because now we're a little different length on all of our wires, a little longer. So plug this one all the way in, snapping it in place. It's a weatherproof connector, so it's a little tight on those O-rings. And then take the other plug that's going into the fairing and plug into the other side. In one step of plugging this in, you have now took all 4 speakers in the bike, the fairing speakers and the rear speakers, and they've been moved to the front channels of the amp. And now we have a new output to run to the back to run those subwoofers. All plug and play, all already done. So I'm going to take this wire, I'm going to run it back up through a hole that's in behind the headlight here, bringing this toward the middle, because we're going to run up that backbone of the bike. We're going to actually tuck this wiring back up in this cavity, this extra area here to the side of the speaker. There's actually plenty of room up in there for it. Just like that, we are wired. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to start moving it or pushing it back toward the rear of the bike, following that factory wiring so we can route it. All right, so you're going to want to turn your handlebar. You're going to want to come up in here. There's a little cover on the side of the neck. This is tricky for some people. If you take this plastic cover and you just pull backwards and out at the same time, it will release and come out so that you have access to run that wiring. So I'm just pushing this connector through this hole in the neck. You'll see it come out here. I'll pull the excess wire in here. Once I've got that pulled through, I'm just going to continue up with that factory wiring. I'm going to straighten this up a little to give a little bit more room. Reinstall that cover on the neck while I'm here. Just pulled back and pushed in. So now I can run this right up through here with the other wiring. It runs back to under the seat. So I'm just going to bring this to here for now. We'll do something with that here in a little while, but let's put our cover back on and start reassembly of some of these parts. So backbone cover is going back on now. Snapping it back in as we go. Always make sure you don't have any wiring that's hanging out. It's snuck out the side. Some of that factory wiring likes to do that. Make sure we rearrange those brake lines where they go. Make sure they're still snapped in the side of the frame. Continue to push and snap that in all the way down through here. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and set the gas tank back on. Let's go ahead and go back together with it. Let's put the bolts back in it now. All right, let's tighten the back ones all the way down now. Now we'll go ahead and plug in that harness that we unplugged earlier. Tucking it back in here where it was. Like I say, this bike's got a lot of extra wires from this underglow kit. I really don't like underglow neon lights, as far as most of the kits have just way too much under the seat to have to deal with. So I'm going to go ahead and put my little rubber covers back on the front. All right, and then I'm going to connect my fuel line. Same steps as earlier. We're just going to push up on that silver sleeve. While it's up, push up on the fuel line. When that sleeve clicks down, we're in place. Again, I've got some underglow lights. I'm going to get those plugged back up, and we'll jump to under the seat in this rear wiring here in just a second. All right, so next I want you to go ahead and pull both of your side covers off in the back. I'm just going to continue to route the wiring that we're going to do for these rear subwoofers. These just pull off. There's some little portions that stick out that go into these rubber grommets. So just press fit, so you can just easily pull those in and out. That's going to open us up a little bit of an area here. What I want you to do is, I want you to take this sub wire and I want you to bring it across and bring it down into here. There's room to do this, whether you have ABS or you don't. There's quite a bit of a void on this side. So we're going to work it into this area. And from here, we're going to run our wiring over for our subwoofer. So let me grab the next portion and show that to you. All right, so now we're going to grab our second harness that came with it. This is going to have a T, plugs into that harness that we just ran down, and then these are going to go out to each bag. One's labeled brake, one's labeled belt. One goes to the brake side, one goes to the belt side. So we're going to plug this in this area. And again, I marked sub on this. I need to take a marker, write sub on this as well, and I'll mark the other ones as I go. In the future, we'll put different plugs on this, so there's no way that somebody can get this confused or swapped out. So easy enough, we're going to run the brake side just through here. We'll take some zip ties and clean all this up here in a little while. And I'm going to put this in the same place that we did our 6x9 wires. Again, they look very, very similar, but I'm going to mark this one. If you've got a Dymo label printer, you can print a label and put on it, something like that, and just make it say subwoofer instead. Always take and secure our wire up with another zip tie through this hole. Make sure it never gets down into the tire. We definitely don't want to get a tire rubbing through our wiring. All right, so that side's easy enough because we're already on this side. So let's take the other one and we're going to fish it back to the other side. So you can do this a couple ways. I'm probably going to take my battery tray cover loose. Let's get that on the other side. Just take the two 13mm bolts from it and just pass this on to the other side. That's going to be probably the easiest for us. I want to show you the easier way. I'm going to remove these two bolts at the rear of our battery. What that's going to do is that's going to allow you to actually lift this up. Take your wiring, run it under it and across. Fish around any other wiring that's in your way. I want you to also go ahead and remove the two 13mm in the side of this fuse panel area. When you do that, this just leans out of your way here. Continue to run that wire under all of this. We're coming from that battery area into here. When we're done, all this wiring is going to be run right at the rear of the battery. It's not under the seat in the midst of all this other mess. We're just pulling it back through. I'm just going to zip tie this with the rest of our wires. Do it the easy way here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and take my marker, put some marks on here to make sure that I don't get confused later. And I'll probably get a label printer and print a label to go on this. All right, just so I know it's different, I'm going to go ahead and just write on here with a marker, just coloring to signify that it's different. And I'll put a little S on here. I know what that's for. I'll put another S on the other connector. All right, so again, dropping a zip tie through this same hole, making sure I go around that wire so it doesn't ever fall down into the belt. Not a lot of lead on it, but we still want to make sure it's held up here. Let's go ahead and put these 4 bolts back in with the 13mm in the side of the fuse panel here. Then we're going to put the ones in the back of the battery tray. All right, so again, marking, I'm just going to go ahead and mark this one so I know. So I'm going to put a label on it later, put me an S here. And then I'm going to also put an S on the side of this for subwoofer. All right, so this excess wiring here will be fine behind this side panel. I'm actually going to secure this one around this line. One more zip tie. Just taking this excess and pulling it down here out of the way. All right, so now we're good to put our side panels back on. Start with this one. All right. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and clean my hands up because this bike's pretty dirty. Get the bags back on. We'll come back in a second. We'll plug those in. We'll get those on. And then we'll move to the inside of the bag and finish that inside wiring. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take our bag over to our bike, get it in position. Now, while it's leaned out, we want to go ahead and plug these in to the appropriate place. Now, my back one is for my 6x9s. I'm going to grab it up here. Plug it in. These are all weatherproof, quick disconnects. And this is my subwoofer there in the front. I'm going to take this lighting wiring and move it over there. Now this is going underneath this retainer. That's going to give us plenty of room as we lean out to remove it, but it also keeps it away from our subwoofer. Now we're going to take the bolt that came with our Cicada mounting kit and the washer, putting it through this new heavier duty version of our front bushings. Now you're going to tighten these up until they quit tightening up. There's actually a steel sleeve in the middle, and they're wanting you to tighten it until you compress that rubber some. This is going to give us a much better feel as far as the base being radiated into the bike. We want that to work like a transducer, allowing that base to be felt, not just heard. So as we tighten it down, though, we want to go all the way tight because we definitely don't want our bag coming loose. There's going to be a lot of additional vibration from these subs. So as you tighten it down, it's going to compress that rubber, and you're going to feel it bottom out when you hit the bottom of that sleeve. I just did there. We'll do the same thing in the front. All right, so now I don't want to forget to plug this in, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in his light. He just had it here under the edge of the seat. I'll put it back like he had it. We didn't do that install. But now we're going to talk about what it's going to take to finalize that wiring to our subwoofer. So let me grab a couple tools. I'll be back and I'll show you what we're going to do to connect this to that sub. All right, so earlier when I had you install your sub, I had you rotate those terminals toward the front, knowing that our wiring was going to go here. So I just want you to take your wiring, come down the length to those terminals, give yourself a couple inches of extra space, come out, and I want you to cut this harness. This harness has spades for that style speaker. This sub does not. So we're going to cut that. I'm going to strip this back with a pair of strippers, exposing the red and black wire on the inside. I'm going to strip each one of those back, just enough to put a ferrule on them. Now you could take this, twist it, go right into these terminals. They're just a push terminal. But what I'm going to do is I like to put a ferrule on the end. This just keeps any stray copper wires from making their way to the other terminal. Now I'll use a ferrule crimper, and I'll crimp that in place. Crimp it, make sure they're good and tight. Now you got a black one and a red one for now. We're going to put that in the ones that match in color. So there is a black terminal that on the end of it is black. And then out here there's a red one. Now you're going to press in, insert that into the hole and release. And now we are connected to our subwoofer. Just that easy. Now I'm not going to just leave this wire loose. I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to put a zip tie around this structure of the sub. We're going to put it where it wouldn't possibly get hit with the sub moving, but hold that wire. We don't want it just flopping around in the bag. This is also going to limit if you decide to put a shirt in here or a jacket or something while you're riding. We don't want you to accidentally undo this wire. So this is going to help that not happen. So I'm going to put a zip tie around the middle of this little structure on the sub. I'm going to pull my zip tie up to where this part is facing upward. I'm sliding this around. There we go. And I'm going to flush cut it. So that's just securing that wire where it will not easily come unplugged. So we want to do that as well. In this location, there's nothing about the sub moving that's going to get in the way. So just that simple. We got this one wired. It's plugged in. It's bolted in. I'm going to do this again on the other side. We're going to go to the front, make a couple setting changes. We are so close to hearing this now. All right, so we're back up at the fairing. Now, previously we'd showed you on the Road Glide, you could unbolt the radio and lift it up to get those amp settings. Now, this is the point where you wanted to make sure you've already set the amp before we move forward. So call our tech support, 1-844-30-AUDIO, have them look up your order, give you the settings you need to add those subs. Now, I will say we used a factory radio in this install. I would highly, highly, highly recommend a SoundStream radio, because when you flash the stock radio, you do not get a completely flat curve. You actually get a drop in the bass area where subs normally play. So to get the best out of your add-on subs, a SoundStream radio is going to make a huge difference in that output and that clarity. This is going to sound good. That's going to sound a lot better. And I think it's well worth the money to put into the radio before you drop the money into the subs. So in order of things, do the radio first. You're going to get a lot better sound. You may not even decide you need the subs with the radio if you're lacking bass, because it's going to add more of it. This is going to add a whole different level to it. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just bolt my radio back in, get it all the way tight. Then we're going to move on and get that headlight reinstalled. We're so close to letting you hear it, and I've already set the amp on this to the proper settings. Already actually threw a SoundStream radio in it as well. Listen to that, got the proper settings for that, because everything that we have you do at home, we have already done here. And we do it here so that we can make sure that no matter what, that our tech support has the proper information for you. Had a little wire snuck under the back corner there. Want to make sure we didn't crimp down on it. So we have the settings for the SoundStream Reserve V2, the WHD14, and the factory radio in this bike. So we've already got those done. Now we're doing a 24 and up version of this as well, working on the DSP tune because it has a DSP in the interface on that new Skyline radio. We're going to get that tuned and release those videos hopefully shortly after these. Now the reason we picked the 14 to 23 to do first, Hertz does have a drop-in enclosure coming, but we know it's not coming out as fast as the 24 and up. Likely, they're telling me 60 days after the 24 and up version. That puts us near March, maybe a little later into the riding season. That gives you a 4-month jump getting this system and getting it installed. And for many of you, you're not going to be worried about taking the subs in and out. Now, if you're worried about losing that space permanently and you want to be able to remove those subs, then you need to just wait on that drop-in enclosure. So radio's in. I'm going to go ahead and just move these lights that he had back toward the front. I'm going to get my stool and come over here and put our headlight in. All right, so we've got our headlight. We're going to make sure and plug it in. Now, if we've done good wire management, which we generally do, we shouldn't have any problem getting our headlight to drop right back in where it was. Now, this one has some side lights that have been added. I'll have to route that wiring. You may not have that on your end. We're going to go ahead and start this upper bolt. Starting all 4 screws before you tighten any of them all the way down. That always helps you not get one cross-threaded. All right, so they're all in, so I'm going to make sure they all go tight. Now I'm going to go ahead and route this wiring up here and plug it in like they had it before we did our sub install. They just had their excess wire tucked in here, which we're going to do as well. We'll make sure and plug in our outside fairing lights, those little turn signals, as we put our fairing on. So we're ready to grab our outer fairing. We're going to bring it over. We're going to start getting it secured back on as well. All right, so I'm going to start with those black Torx T25 screws that go in at the speaker area. We're going to slide this in, making sure we line up little vents that may be on the side. Make sure we get in here in the right places. And then we're going to come in here on the speaker side of things and go ahead and start this bolt. This will keep our fairing from falling off as we get the rest of the hardware on. Yep, everything's lined up on this side. And what we're doing is we're just making sure that these little grooves go in the right place so that it doesn't fight us later as we try to go together. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and plug in these upper lights. I don't want to forget about them on each side. All right. So now I'm going to grab our Torx bolts that go at the bottom of the inner fairing on each side. You know, we had one on each side right down here at the bottom. All right, back to that 3/16 Allen. We're going to put the 2 larger Allens here holding our side marker lights on. That portion of the fairing. All right, let's go to the other side. Go ahead and take our speaker grills. Make sure your gaskets are pressed back in where they go. A lot of times they'll come loose. Get those snapped back in place. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put on this portion. Now, this lip is going to fit in here. And because we have these outside lights, I have to kind of be aware of where that wiring is ran on those. Make sure they're going to go back where they need to go. Same thing on the other side. You probably won't have a set of these lights, so this won't be a concern to you on your install. We'll get both sides in and we just press down. It's going to snap back in place. I'll grab the little Allen head to tighten these up and the hardware for those. All right, so I'm just going to take my light, bring it up here, just start these. We're not going to tighten them. We're just going to get them going in. Now, a lot of these, again, are going to have just a Phillips screw from the factory. I actually think the factory hardware is a little easier to deal with, but all of these lights like to send you some fancy bolts to go along with it. All right, let's grab our windshield and slide it in place. Now that it's slid down, we're going to go ahead and tighten these back up. All right, that's the last step. As you see, this wasn't that difficult. It's a little time consuming. There are definitely a lot of steps, but I wouldn't tell you that any of them are necessarily hard. With basic hand tools and a very little bit of knowledge that hopefully you've got from this video, I think you can do this on your own. But remember, at Volunteer Audio, you still get free lifetime tech support. So if you get stuck, you can call me, you can call Rick. We're going to talk to you. We're going to walk you through whatever it is that you have a question about and help you get this done complete. Also, if you get stuck and you're like, this isn't something I want to do, it's more than I can do, two other options. You can ship the bags here. You can have us do the labor portion, the cutting, the mounting of the bags, or you could also make an appointment and bring the bike in. We'd love to meet you, do the install here for you. This is a little bit of a longer install, so it is going to be a full day or maybe into part of the next day if we're doing a system and subs together, because it is quite a bit of labor to get this done. All right, so now it's time to listen to it. Again, this is a factory radio. Factory radio has been flashed. One thing to keep in mind on factory radios, once they've been flashed, the EQ, you never want to take the treble or the bass past the middle point. Now, I know we did this to add bass, but as you turn the bass up, you're not going to gain more bass. You're going to gain distortion. That distortion is going to be hard for you to hear while riding. You will blow speakers by turning the bass up in the radio past the halfway point. We can't fix the distortion the radio has. Also, all of our amp settings are good to 3 dots from full volume because the radio itself distorts when you go above that. So if you're going down the road and you go to full volume and you don't stop those couple dots short, you will over time overheat those coils and blow a speaker, whether it's a 6.5, a 6x9, or a sub, it doesn't matter. That distortion is still there. So there's some things you need to do to keep it safe while riding. It's still going to be loud. It's going to be crazy loud at that 3 dot range. If you have the SoundStream radios, they have a very powerful EQ with a lot more adjustment. And I would highly suggest you watch our video on how to properly set those EQs, or go to Volunteer Audio, go to the support tab, and check out our document there on the V2 radio. The same EQs can be mimicked in the other SoundStream radios, but the idea is we're not going to boost any of the EQ. So we've got either a 13 band or 15 band. We don't want to boost that up and create distortion. We go over that in that video. We go over that in the document. We show you how to adjust it to your liking, to your genre, without blowing speakers. We're riding a fine line. We're getting a ton of power out of this amp. We're going extremely loud, and we can't expect a 6.5 or 6x9 to be boosted with distortion without blowing. Same thing with the subs. We can only get so much without it. So I would recommend 2 subs. If you do 1 subwoofer, you're going to wish you had a second. And because of that, you may start boosting things, trying to get more, and you may end up causing yourself heartache and grief by blowing speakers. We don't want to see that. But enough talking. I've warned you all that I can about what's going on. But let's get this thing playing. We'll talk about what it sounds like, and I'd love to have you come down and listen to one of our demo bikes and hear it in person later on. But we're going to get Willie's bike finished up and get him where it can go home to him. So let's get some music playing. Again, Volunteer Audio has to play copyright-free music. This may not be a song you've ever heard before. I have been listening to this bike, and it sounded great with most of the modern Christian contemporary music that I listen to, modern country, R&B, hip-hop. I listened to some classic rock. It definitely sounded more full, but if you're really trying to get sub-bass to show out, you need something that has sub-bass notes, which is going to get into these other genres and more modern music. Let's get it fired up, get our Bluetooth connected. We're going to play a track from Epidemic Sound and make sure that it's copyright friendly so that you can actually hear it at home. So immediately you can tell there's definitely a lot of bass that a 6x9 just cannot produce. Now, I never want to oversell bass, but I'm telling you, I'm really happy with this. It sounds really, really good. Well, this isn't two 12-inch subs and a kid's hatchback Honda in the back. This is correct amount of bass. This means if the song has sub bass, you're going to hear it. If it doesn't have sub bass, it's not going to create something that's not there, but you're going to have that kick drum. You're going to have those bass notes. And I'll give you, I listened to Crowder. They just had a new song come out. It's called The Rock. It sounded good on my bike, but it didn't have the bass drop that's in it. So there's so many songs that have a good low-end sub bass note. Tennessee Whiskey from Chris Stapleton sounded better with the subs than without. There's a good bass note in there that just sounds more full. Overall, the sound is better. It's fuller. There are frequencies that were missing without subs that are now here. It is awesome that it's so simple to install, that it runs off the front amp, that it's easy to remove your bag for service, for cleaning, for whatever, without having to run additional parts, and we didn't have to upgrade the battery. Now, you could absolutely run a lithium battery and get longer run time without the engine running, but it will play off of this. Now, if you go up to the next step, if you seal that bag, if you add the second amp, if you go to a more powerful woofer, you are going to need a lithium battery, another amp, and a lot more work, and we more than double the cost. So remember, this is a budget-friendly but awesome system that you can add in that permanently mounts, and I think it sounds awesome. I've listened to so many songs, but I just had to let you hear something that was copyright-free. I know Willie's going to be happy with the sound. I know he's going to be tickled with this bike, and I know you would be if you add this as well. Now, right now, Hertz has got some sales going on, so I would act now, buy these while we have them. I think we have 10 full sets ready to go, so we're going to be shipping these as fast as we can as people buy them, but we custom build the harness from the front to the back that you need. That takes us a little bit of time, and we share you all those settings and all the things you need to go along with it. So we're making sure we supply you the hardware and every part you need, other than the tools we showed you. You are going to need some RTV silicone, you're going to need a saw, you're going to need the hand tools that you saw in the video, so, and some zip ties. You're going to need quite a few to manage that wiring as you go through, but overall, easy install. Let me know what you think about this video. Comment below. Let me know what you think about the sound, what you think about adding subs, about losing some of that space. And I'm going to tell you, look inside. There's actually a little bit of space in the front, a little bit in the back. I think we could still put a shirt, a jacket, and whatnot if we need to going down the road. But overall, you're losing a lot. But I will have you look at this. Check out this brace. Check out how when we move the bag, this doesn't flex any. Everything is rigid. It's solid. Cicada did a great job with this installation kit. And I think, as you see with our subwoofer, sounds great. Added that low bass that we want. Those new gaskets are still a little tight, but that's what we want. We want a great speaker enclosure. They've done a way to make that out of a saddlebag. All right. Comment below again. Let me know what you think. Reach out to us, 1-844-30-AUDIO. Call us and let us know about your bike, your build, your budget. Let's put together that perfect audio system so over the winter, you can get it all ready before rally season gets here and you want to go ride again. Also, subscribe to Volunteer Audio on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook. We're going to be putting out many other videos related to this sub idea. We got the 24 and up versions coming. We'll be doing the videos, step-by-step install, sound videos, so on that as well. I know a lot of you are interested in that as it comes out. And those Hertz drop-in subs are going to be here soon. We'll do that. We got some Cicada videos coming where we're going to show some of their systems with the mid-bass. We'll be comparing some subwoofers to mid-bass and what that does for you riding down the road compared to sitting in a parking lot showing off to your friends. But I've been wanting some low bass. This is going to give it to me. I think this is going to be an awesome solution for so many people. And the price is a lot more affordable than most any of the drop-in subs that are out there from any other brand. And we're getting a lot better results than what's currently on the market. Now, those new Hertz ones are a next level drop-in. So we'll compare those as they come out and see how loud they are in comparison. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was informative. I hope it helped you. And I hope that you liked this video enough to click that like button. Thank you and have a blessed day.